Well, let's have a look at John's Gospel. Chapter 2. I'm going to follow the King James. Doesn't matter too much which we follow, but let's see what we can see. And the third day. Now, 3 is a significant number, isn't it? You know, the third day was the resurrection in the story. There's 3 levels of matter, if you like, in this world that's significant sort of stages. There's the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal. And don't think of the way we count, which is, if I say 3 things, I mean 3 things, all of 3 things. But if we're talking about time, there's a tendency to talk about, well, when did this all start? Well, on the day of so-and-so, so that's the first day we're looking at. And then, you know, there was the second day, if you like, the vegetable, you know, we've made plants and so on. And then there's the third day, which is the animal kingdom, the, you know, very sophisticated plants, if you like. These get up and walk and move around and are independent of where you first put them. Extraordinary situation. And that third day offers the possibility of choice being made for God. In other words, something quite transcendent can happen on the third day, and the resurrection is pictured as being in the third day in that way. Do you see? Okay, there was a marriage. Marriage. This is important. What's so important about marriage? Two persons come together and they form something quite different. The example I always give is my first wife and I came down to breakfast. We'd never had breakfast together before. And we had breakfast in a totally new way. Well, not totally, but in a new way to how we'd had it before. The way I used to have breakfast at home and the way she used to have breakfast at home was now not that. It was slightly different. It was in a different house. A lady had let us rent her Dutch Quarter house in Colchester, very near the castle, Essex, England. And we're talking about, I was 24, I think, so take 24 off 76, and it's now the date it is, you know, it's back then. And, wow. Anyway, there's a marriage. This dramatic event, this major change, this, you could say, reason for living in some ways, that you're going to become this new couple. And they'll have children, of course. I mean, it's going to be incredibly creative. And of course, it's meant to be a wonderful time, isn't it? A time when you celebrate and great happiness. In other words, this is a absolutely magical, in the nice sense of the word, event, wonderful thing. And the mother of Jesus was there. Oh, you think, well, okay, mother of Jesus was there. So what? But that's going to be a key point. Because we haven't said who the marriage is about, have we? But the second verse might give you something of a clue. Both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. Now, the King James, my King James, has a colon between the first and the second verse. And I sort of picked up, Mum invited Jesus to the marriage. It's mother. Not that it was a coincidence that Jesus went to a marriage and his mum's there as well. Oh, that's interesting. That it's in Cana of Galilee. Okay, well, the story is that he's from Galilee. So, okay, someone that knows him is invited into the marriage, or is it mum? And, well, can I pause on mum a minute? Mum is, if you think of the stages of creation, the mother, there's earth, Mother Earth if you like, and the plants, we're now talking about Mother Nature, and the animal life is now talking about mothers as we now think of, literally the female, the mother, the one that produces the children. The mother of Jesus was there. The whole creative reason for Jesus, the person, if we think of a man called Jesus, his mum's there. Okay. And both Jesus was called. He was called. Now, the word called, of course, now is terribly significant in religious circles. Always, are you called? You respond to the call because it's God calling, sort of thing. But anyway, Jesus was called. He was called there. If he's called, then God had him called. Whoever called him, God had him called. And his disciples to the marriage. Oh, hang on, how many disciples has he got? Well, whatever the number is at this point, this could be, that's costly. This is a costly guest. Is it the mother's guest? Who's making the marriage? And verse 3, when they wanted wine, oh, well, that's very normal. We're at marriage, aren't we? Yes, wine. Wine is because we want everyone to be happy and rejoice, and this is going to be a good social occasion. When they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, they haven't got any wine. Oh, what sort of marriage is this? Now, look, we've always taken, they must have run out, mustn't they? And there is some indication of that later in the story, that there was other wine and it wasn't as good, and that they had wine, but they run out. But it's not clear. She just says they have no wine. And Jesus said unto a woman, what have I to do with thee? What's this about? Mine hour is not yet come. Now, what does he mean by that? Mine hour is not yet come. Let me pause there a sec. Well, we in hindsight take it to mean his ministry. And but if you didn't have this foresight at this point and you're following the story, you think, what's going on here? This mum of Jesus has the right to invite a whole retinue of people to a wedding. Whose wedding is this? And we in our hindsight look back and say, oh goodness, Jesus realized that, she's saying this is the moment when, if you like, It's all going to be revealed that your great transcendence, your oneness with God, is going to be celebrated. This is it. This feast, this marriage, is for you. And we're talking about a spiritual marriage now. But it's played in this story of a marriage going on that Jesus happens to be at. And, you think, well, in the modern world sense, you look at it and say, well, this is a bit curt of Jesus talking to his mum like this. What have I to do with you? It's nothing to do with me, mate. If I was to put it in is it vernacular? Mine hour is not yet come to do something about wine being at a wedding. Well, his mother doesn't seem to give a response to this other than she says to the servants in verse 5, whatsoever he says unto you, do it. Now we have something of the authority of the mother at this meeting. How come she can say to the servants, do that? Because she is called the wedding. Now remember, she in the story is Mother Earth, Mother Nature, Mother, as in the human world, Mother. She is the mother of, she has the authority to call him while he is in her care. Jesus is her child. She has the authority to call him to the wedding, to this meeting. And she has the authority to invite who she likes. She's decided all this retinue of disciples can come too, and are called, are to come. And he obeys. And now he's being asked to do something that he's not at all sure he's ready for. Well, if he's God, of course he does, but if he's man, like you and I, and we're about to meet our transcendence into this oneness with God, our moment of enlightenment, conversion, if it's, now a marriage, spiritual, and it's us, am I ready? What have I to do with thee? What are you saying here, Mum? Mine hour's not yet come, meaning I'm not, am I ready for this? Yeah. But his mother doesn't say, oh, you are, or anything else. She simply plows on. She knows what she's doing. Do you see, Mother Earth is about to hurl her son out into his adult life. Instead of being wedded to, instead of being his mum's child, is now going to be his wife's husband. God, the true creator, the full creator of all things, he's transcending into this ministry, this relationship. And it's the earth that's propelling him into it. Mother Earth, Mother Nature, the world, his mother, people. They're, whether it's his disciples, whether it's the populace, and if we jump now to what this means in terms of the crucifixion part of the story, is going to propel him out of the world into the purity of the presence of God again, isn't it? His mother saith unto the servants, she has the authority, whatsoever he says, do it. In other words, he's going to have to do it. The time has come. His hour has come. The earth creation says to God, Rachel, or whatever your name is, are ready. You've been prepared, you've been born, you are ready. This is your marriage. This is your great transformation where you become one with someone else. In this case, of course, we're talking about our Heavenly Father. It's an individual thing in marriage, but on the other hand, he's brought his disciples, his followers. They're going to be affected the same way, or at least there's some indication that that's what's going to happen. This is significant to them, that's why they must be at the wedding. And this is what happens to you when you go to, if you like, a baptism. Oh, one or two of the people there, this is very significant to them, and they think, perhaps I should be baptized. My goodness, am I ready? Am I ready, Father? You know? Verse 6, just in case you're in doubt, and there were set there 6 water pots. Water, water, water. Ancient time, what does water mean? Water is what the firmament below and the firmament above sort of thing. There's a division, and there was dry land and so on. But there's 6 water pots. Six. I don't normally talk about 7. Why 6? 6 days of the week it took to do all creation. The 7th day is the transcendence, when God rests. He rests because he is satisfied. He's done it. So, what's the result of these 6 water pots? Of stone. Stone suggests the most unlifelike of things, doesn't it? It's not plants and it's not animals, it's stone. After the manner of the purifying of the Jews. Look, I'm looking too much into this, but are they pointing out that the purifying of the Jews was as dead as doornails, as dead as stone? Purifying of the Jews. Why are we interested in the water pots being of stone? Oh, because they had stone for the water pots that were used for the purifying by the Jews. Interesting that we're saying it though, isn't it? Containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece, presumably that tells us that's a terrific amount. They're big, these things. Jesus saying they're going to have to be, how big's this wedding? How many people we got there? Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water. Now, why is he suddenly doing it? He's acting as she assumes he's going to act, presumably because he's still under her authority, you see? So, okay, you're going to take responsibility for this, Mum. Fill the water pots with water, servants, and they fill them to the brim. In other words, they're totally obedient to the lady of the house. I think that lady who's running the wedding, as far as I can see, she's got the authority to, it's just on her authority this is happening, the servants are doing it. And verse 8, he says to them, okay, draw out now and bear unto the governor of the feast. Now, take his earlier comment, what have I to do with you? My time is not yet come. And this is the thing, well, if it is time with you, Heavenly Father, you're going to do something fantastic here. And if it isn't, well, told you so. This is a bit of a casual interpretation of the story, isn't it? But certain things, I think, come to light, don't they? Now, what's going to happen? No, I mean, Jesus hasn't put his hand in there to make sure it's turned into wine. He's not telling the servants, check if this is wine, will you? And then, if it is, take it in there. He just says, no, take it in there. And this is showtime. This is the moment of truth. Have you got the Spirit or not? Is it still water? Is it still of earth? You know, the sea, the water beneath and the firmament above and so on. it's just chaos earth. Is it that? Or is this life? Is this the wine? Is this spirit? Is this what God's creation is all about? Has it come to this flowering moment? We've had the 6 days. They're there. They were just material, weren't they? Weren't they? They were made by God. The matter, the minerals, the plants, life of the sort, the animal life, that's a sophisticated form of life. But now we're talking about, are we actually coming? Are we there? Has it come to this moment of flowering, if you like, in the vegetable terms, the flower? Has it come to this moment of, I don't know what it is in the mineral what's the point when you shift from mineral to plant? Something extraordinary goes on, doesn't it? I don't know. Well, it's the act of God, of course, each one, and is there going to be this act of God now as we shift from animal to heavenly being in some sense? Well, number 9 tells you, of course. 9 is the end of it, the end of the story, really. It may be, an amazing coincidence, but we've got to verse 9, the way they've chopped this story up, and the numbers weren't there, of course, originally. Well, I don't think they were. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, it's the end of the story. That's it. The ruler of the feast is the chap in charge, which is not the person who's asked him to be in charge. In this case, I think it could be Mum, by the looks of it. Mother of Jesus. It's the ruler of the feast. He knew not whence it was, and so on. Okay, yeah, very interesting, but we're at verse 9, and it's made wine. What? You would say if you'd never read the story before. Oh, this is an amazing fairy story, isn't it? Oh, water turned into wine. In the secular, if you just heard this story and you didn't know it was anything to do with the religion or anything else, you'd say, oh, this is a fairy story. We're talking about something magical going on. We turn water into wine. We got a magician here. We got something, well, in secular terms, we've got make-believe. Yeah, very interesting. The entire story is actually turning water into wine. Now what follows next is all very interesting, but it's trying to give you clues, I suspect, about the significance of this story. Now don't dismiss a thing because it's a story. You might be being taught incredibly serious stuff. After all, you never know the truth of something really. You surmise it from the way it's described, and the way it's described is not actually the way it is, but in some sense makes it understandable. And if you like, acceptable as the best understanding of the truth that we can hold at the minute. So I'm not saying this is history, that this event actually happened. I'm simply analysing this story. And don't dismiss stories. If I might mention the name Rudolf Steiner for a moment, the imagination of the child is everything to their development. If they cannot imagine, they're dead in the water. That phrase is a bit more poignant now I've gone through this discourse, isn't it? But do you see our ability to think, to imagine, to represent in our mind, to see a thing as if it had happened, may help us understand what does happen. So very often when you get a difficult theory, the scientist will say, well, imagine this, you see, the atom is a bit like there being a central nucleus, like the sun, and there's planets whizzing around it, they're called electrons, but it's on a tiny, tiny scale. That's a bit like the atom is, except there's lots of planets whizzing around, and you know, he then starts to elaborate and say how the story is not quite what reality is, and then he finds, lo and behold, my goodness, it's not even like he thought it was either. And we suddenly get on to quantum theory and that. Well, now, quantum theory is like this, you see, and he goes through another story. But, you know, each story helps the mind to hone in on something that represents the truth so much better to you than before, and helps you in consequence in your living and your understanding. That's what it's all about. Remember, this is life eternal, to know God. It's to, in some sense, understand God. Now, how can I know God? Well, not really without having his full mind and understanding. So, in a sense, there's no way I, as I am now, could know God, except he does something pretty miraculous about my abilities. In other words, I've got to come to know. And it's this coming to know, this amazing thing that science goes through. Science is the ongoing coming to know. Okay, they think they're studying creation, but perhaps that means you understand the Creator, if you understand creation. So, what I'm saying is, whatever you do, don't dismiss a thing because it's a story. But knowing it's a story, that may help you not worship it. And that comes to be very important, because you're meant to be devoted to God, not to a story. Now that sounds very sort of mystical, really, because I mean, how can I understand God but with a story? Well, that's true. The story helps you understand. But, you know, the thing that helps you is not the thing you're understanding. I don't mean to say God is the thing, but I hope you know what I mean here. Being on earth helps you understand God. Does that mean earth is God? No, it's something God has that helps you understand him. Okay? So we're not worshipping the story or earth or understanding. Some people worship understanding. They worship philosophy or science, or they worship religion, theology. We're not here for that. By worship I mean it's loving God, your Heavenly Father, with all your heart, soul, mind and strength. Nothing else. Not the story. Not Jesus. God. And Jesus tells us, well, think of him as your Heavenly Dad. Because he is your dad in a more fundamental sense. Perhaps that's what he's saying, yeah? We don't know anything for sure. Please don't worship certainty. The whole point of this universe is it's laced through and through with uncertainties all the time. It's very hard to predict anything. You're not certain of anything. You get very sure of some things, that the sun's going to come up tomorrow. But, you know, could happen that it doesn't. We'd call it a simply major cataclysm, wouldn't you? But I mean, yeah, okay. So, we're not even to worship uncertainty, but its presence, and the fact that God's allowed it, suggests that the uncertainty is a great blessing to us. And I've argued elsewhere, it's possibly because it gives us a great freedom to experience what's not terribly heavenly and adjust our values accordingly, that we are better suited to spend life in God's eternal heavenly host family. Okay, I think I'll take a pause there because it's probably gone on too long. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you, Dad.